many other...
This is right, Arab.
Hello and welcome to WION Live Broadcast from Washington, D.C. I am Caroline Malone. In the next 30 minutes or so, we'll get you updates on stories developing around the world. First, the headlines. The first flight carrying Afghan interpreters and diplomats has arrived in the United States as part of an operation to evacuate thousands from possible Taliban retaliation. The Taliban admits to cold-blooded murder of Afghanistan's most popular comedian, Nazar Mohammed. The comedian was taken out of his home last week and his throat was slit. UNICEF has warned that more than 100,000 children in Tigray, Ethiopia, could suffer from life-threatening severe acute malnutrition in the next 12 months. Turkish firefighters continue to battle deadly wildfires for a third day after the evacuation of dozens of villages and some hotels. More than 60 wildfires are raging across 17 provinces. The UK warns the UN Security Council that the junta-led Myanmar's 54 million people could get the coronavirus within the next 2 weeks. Britain is urging the UN to enforce safe delivery of vaccines in conflict zones. Well, Russia says that all is well with the International Space Station and its 7-member crew after its newly docked Nauka research module briefly threw the International Space Station out of control a day earlier. World number one Novak Djokovic's bid for the unprecedented Golden Slam of men's tennis is over. Germany's Alexander Zverev produced an astonishing comeback to knock the Serbian out in the semi-finals of the Olympic Games. Well, first up, the latest attempt to get reluctant Americans vaccinated. US President Biden announced a host of new steps his administration will take to get people to get vaccinated against COVID-19. Biden has urged local governments to give a $100 reward to those who get vaccinated. The US president has also brought in new vaccination rules for federal workers. All federal employees will need to give proof of being vaccinated or face regular testing. New and stricter rules also include mask mandates and travel restrictions. The new measures come amid rising Delta variant cases in the country, leading to a surge in COVID hospitalizations and deaths. Well, the vast majority of those individuals with severe cases of COVID-19 are unvaccinated. Well, while the White House has previously been opposed to vaccine passports, it has taken a tougher stance as the infections rise.
We need to wear a mask to protect each other and to stop the rapid spread of this virus as we work to get more people vaccinated. And I hope all Americans who live in areas with substantial or high case rates will follow the mask guidance that's being laid down by the CDC. I certainly will, and I have, because this is one of those areas in Washington. And at my decision, in my direction, all federal personnel and visitors to federal buildings will have to do the same thing. As more people get vaccinated, we are better protected as a nation to continue reopening safely and responsibly. We are not fully out of the woods yet, because what is happening in America right now is a pandemic of the unvaccinated. Let me say that again. It's a pandemic of the unvaccinated. There are about 90 million Americans who are eligible to get the shot, but haven't gotten it yet. As I just mentioned, nearly all of the cases Hospitalizations and deaths due to COVID-19 today are from unvaccinated people.
Well, meanwhile, state and local governments will be able to dip into $350 billion in coronavirus aid to provide $100 payments for every newly vaccinated American in order to boost COVID-19 inoculation rates. Well, President Biden justified his move, saying if the incentives help beat the virus, then he was for it. According to the Centers for Disease Control, roughly 164 million people in the United States are fully vaccinated out of a population of some 330 million. Well, a study last month also showed that over 99% of COVID-19 deaths have been among the unvaccinated. It comes as virus-related deaths climb to around 2,000 per week, and new cases are now at their highest point in the last 3 months, with about 60,000 being recorded per day. Well, for more details on this story, our correspondent Giles Gibson sent us this report from Washington, D.C.
For months and months now, we've seen US President Joe Biden asking the American people and at times pleading with them to get vaccinated against COVID-19. But on Thursday at the White House, we saw President Biden announcing action towards specific groups of people. He said that he's asking the Department of Defense to explore making coronavirus vaccines mandatory for the US military. And he also said that federal employees are going to have to show proof of vaccination, and if they can't or they don't want to, then they're going to have to start wearing masks in the workplace. They're also going to have to undergo regular testing for COVID-19, and they're going to have to maintain social distancing around their colleagues. This announcement from President Biden follows the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, updating its guidance around the wearing of masks. They're now saying that even if you're fully vaccinated against COVID-19, that you should wear a mask when you're indoors if you live in an area that has substantial or high levels of transmission of COVID-19. This is really the first time that we've seen President Biden being forced to backpedal when it comes to his strategy to contain the coronavirus, because throughout much of his presidency, case numbers have been falling pretty steadily. However, in recent weeks, this highly contagious Delta variant has seen case numbers rising once again here in the United States. The 7-day average of new daily cases is now at approximately 65,000 and rising. I'm Giles Gibson in Washington, reporting for WION.
Extreme weather across the globe is having drastic repercussions. Let's get you an update on what's happening in the United States. In Pennsylvania, at least 5 people have been injured as 2 separate tornadoes touched down. One of them hit a car dealership building directly, forcing its roof to collapse. The storm left a trail of destruction. More than 8,000 homes and businesses were left without power by the storm.
I'm told all 5 individuals are not life-threatening and not critical in nature. All seem to be minor, some trauma, but minor in nature. This was a devastating tornado that came through. There's a lot of structural damage in this area. The Faulkner area just looked like a TV show. It just looked like a bomb went off. I mean, it's gone. Water flowing. You could smell gas until PICO was able to get out there and shut things and secure things. You know, I've been doing this for 34 years. I never saw that kind of devastation.
The situation in Wisconsin is equally concerning. Strong thunderstorms have caused widespread damage across the state. Well, tens of thousands of people are currently living without power. Worse is set for the future, with authorities having issued a tornado warning. The severe weather is stretching from the Mississippi River to Lake Michigan. Well, the National Weather Service has surveyed the hard-hit areas in southeastern Wisconsin. Well, wildfires along Turkey's southern coast rage for a 3rd day. The death toll from wildfires has risen to 4. The Aegean coastal town of Marmaris was enveloped with smoke from the blaze raging in the area. Helicopters were seen throwing water on the flames. Well, this week, over 60 wildfires have erupted across 17 provinces along Turkey's Aegean and Mediterranean coasts. Turkey's forestry minister vowed to bring to account anyone found responsible for starting them.
Şu anda aktif olan tüm yangınlarımızda
Right now there is an improvement with all the active fires. As you know, we cannot say they are under control, but we keep monitoring and making statements. As of this morning, we were hoping to contain some of the fires as of this morning. But while we say cautiously that they're improving, we still cannot say that they are under control.
Şu anda ihtiyaten iyiye gitmekle beraber bunlar için de kontrol altında diyemiyoruz.
Well, villages and some hotels were evacuated in popular tourist areas.
We don't know anything. The personnel of hotel doesn't say anything to us, so we just decided to come outside.
We have been here for 2 days now. It has been 48 hours. Everything was normal when we came out, but then we saw smoke in the background. We thought it was raining. All of a sudden, we saw the flames.
The forestry minister said that currently fires were blazing in 6 provinces, including Anatolia and Mughla. In Magnavat, 27 neighbourhoods were evacuated and 15 others, along with 2,300 structures, were affected. Well, according to Turkey's forestry ministry, 3 planes, 9 drones, 38 helicopters, 680 firefighting vehicles, along with 4,000 personnel have been involved in the firefighting efforts. Well, separate wildfires also raged in provinces of Osmaniye, Kayseri, Adana and Mersin. Well, since the February 1 military coup, Myanmar has endured 6 months of conflict and turmoil. The country has witnessed months of unrest, brutality and violence. Thousands of civilians have been killed in anti-junta protests. 6 months on, the crisis in Myanmar has only worsened. Our next report brings you details of the current state of affairs in the country.
On the morning of February 1st, 2021, a day before the Myanmar Parliament was due to swear in the members elected in 2020 general elections, a coup d'etat began. The military, under Commander-in-Chief General Min Aung Hlaing, took over control and declared a year-long state of emergency. It also declared the general elections results invalid. Leaders of the National League for Democracy, NLD, the party that won the polls, were detained, including State Councillor Aung San Suu Kyi. Soon, people took to streets all across the country, demanding restoration of a democratically elected government. But the protests were only met with force, brutality and barbarity. Six months on, the turmoil in Myanmar has only intensified. The country has witnessed widespread violence with over 1,000 people killed and 1,000 more arrested.
We'll move to a federal democratic union. We'll ask for our equality and freedom. That's what we want. These are our goals.
Tens of thousands of civil servants have either been sacked for joining protests or are still on strike. The crisis in the Southeast Asian country has worsened due to a massive coronavirus outbreak, which has left the healthcare system overwhelmed.
The pandemic now has really paused the resistance a little bit, but it has definitely changed the way in which this resistance is happening. I mean, people are far more worried about COVID-19 at the moment.
When the coup began in February, young demonstrators thronged the streets of cities. In Yangon, protesters held regular flash mobs, chanted slogans, and sometimes even set off flares.
Over the past 6 months, the entire community has been united and the 2008 constitution was repealed. We have seen situations where the military has become more visible as a fascist army. We will only be free from the current crisis if we fight till the end and win against these fascists.
The international community, however, has largely remained silent on the matter. United States, European Union and United Kingdom have ramped up sanctions on the junta and businesses linked to the military. The United Nations has imposed a non-binding resolution to prevent the flow of arms in Myanmar. The junta, with the support of Russia and China, looks to have consolidated its position despite the resistance. State leader Aung San Suu Kyi has barely been seen since February 1st. The military placed her under house arrest in the capital, Naypyidaw. She's been slapped with countless charges, including illegally importing walkie-talkies and flouting COVID restrictions. If convicted, she could be in jail for over a decade. The February coup ended Myanmar's decade-old experiment with democracy. The junta claims that it has plans to stage new elections at an unspecified point in the future. Will the Southeast Asian nation witness a restoration of democracy? Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
The International Space Station was briefly thrown out of control when jet thrusters of a newly arrived Russian research module inadvertently fired a few hours after it was docked to the orbiting outpost. Well, Russia confirmed that all was well within the International Space Station and its 7-member crew. But the malfunction has prompted NASA to postpone its planned launch of Boeing's new CST-100 Starliner capsule on an uncrewed test flight to space station until at least August 3.
Congratulations, that was not an easy docking.
The International Space Station was thrown briefly out of control on Thursday after a newly arrived Russian module malfunctioned, according to NASA. Officials said the 7 crew members aboard weren't in any immediate danger, but the malfunction has prompted the agency to postpone another highly anticipated test flight to the station by Boeing. NASA said Thursday's mishap began about 3 hours after Russia's Nyoka module had latched on to the space station, as mission controllers in Moscow were performing some post-docking reconfiguration procedures. The module's jets unexpectedly restarted and inadvertently fired off their thrusters, pitching the entire station out of its normal flight position, leading the mission's flight director to declare a spacecraft emergency. Flight teams on the ground managed to restore the space station's orientation by activating thrusters on another module of the orbiting platform, with experts describing the struggle to regain control as a tug of war. The Nyoka engines were ultimately switched off and the space station was stabilized. What caused Nyoka's engine malfunction has yet to be determined, but Russia's space agency attributed it to having to work with residual fuel in the craft. The module had experienced glitches after its launch last week, raising concerns about whether it would dock properly. There was no immediate sign of any damage to the space station.
The COVID crisis in Senegal is worsening by the day. The ongoing record COVID-19 surge has left the capital Dakar without spare beds, even for the most severe cases in hospital. Like many African countries facing a third wave of infections, Senegal is more vulnerable due to a low vaccination rate compared to richer nations. It has administered less than 1 million doses so far to a population of around 16 million people.
Something going on. This is the world crisis.
When his family members started falling sick and dying, Idrissa Lo rushed back from the United States to Senegal. On Wednesday, he mourned a fifth relative lost to COVID-19 as a third wave sweeps through a largely unvaccinated population and threatens to overwhelm hospitals.
Yeah, they got sick. Like the one I lost like 2 hours ago is my really close cousin. He's young. He's like 40 years old. And he was sick. He was at the hospital for 2 weeks. And he finally passed away today.
Senegal had largely been spared the levels of death and infection seen in other parts of the world. Until this month, the West African country had recorded 44,000 cases and 1,166 deaths since the start of the crisis. But in July alone, more than 15,000 cases and 139 deaths have been registered.
I was in a cemetery yesterday. In one day alone, average, usually we bury about 3-4 people. Yesterday alone, they buried 35 people.
Dr. Khadiata Diallo, head of infectious diseases at Dakar's Fan Hospital, says health services are being stretched dangerously thin, and that every bed in the capital with supplemental oxygen for those in severe respiratory distress is taken.
We've never seen this. We've never seen patients, especially young ones, arriving in respiratory distress. We had serious cases. We had deaths during the first 2 waves, but the number of deaths and serious cases that we have now, we've never had before. This third wave, to be honest, this third wave threatens to drown us.
Cases have exploded across Africa in recent weeks, hitting a fresh record of nearly 50,000 new daily infections in early July. Senegal, like much of the continent, is especially vulnerable because so few people have been vaccinated. It's administered under 1 million doses to a population of around 16 million. This week, deliveries from Sinopharm and Johnson & Johnson arrived, as well as AstraZeneca shots under the COVAX sharing scheme. Outside the Yoff hospital on Wednesday, hundreds like Ndeye Dia were queuing to be inoculated, with many arriving before dawn.
Everyone is here. We're moving now because we used to say it was for the elderly, but now we see 13-year-old kids getting sick. We see younger people in their 20s dying because of this. It's total panic now.
The Senegalese health ministry has vowed to ramp up immunisations. It also plans to build a plant to manufacture vaccines. Production is expected to begin later this year, with the facility producing 25 million doses per month by the end of 2022. But for those like Idrissa Lo who have lost loved ones, it's already too late.
Let's move on to Tokyo to get you an update on the Indian squad's performance at the Olympics. Well, India's wait for a second medal is over, with boxer Lavina Borgohain storming into the semis of the women's welterweight division. Borgohain is assured of at least a bronze medal in the competition. The Indian faced 2018 world champion Ninchin Chen, having lost all 3 of her previous meetings against her opponent from Chinese Taipei. But Borgohain had gotten closer and closer on each occasion, and this time she got the job done. The first round was very close, with the Indian making a good start and her opponent finishing strong. But 3 of the 5 judges scored in favour of India's 2-time World Championship bronze medalist. The second round saw Borgohain pull away as she used her reach and technique to consistently land blows, which earned her a victory from all 5 judges. Well, Chen tried desperately to salvage things in the final round, but Borgohain smartly held her off and secured a 4-1 point triumph. She is the 3rd Indian boxer after Vijender Singh and Mary Kom to win an Olympic medal. She will have the chance to go one better than the others when she faces top seed and reigning world champion Buznaz Surmeneli in the semis on August 4. Well, world champion PV Sindhu has stormed into the semis of the badminton women's singles competition and is now 1 win away from confirming back-to-back Olympic medals. Sindhu beat 4th seed Akane Yamaguchi of Japan in her toughest test so far of the Tokyo Games. The two players were meeting for the 19th time in a compelling rivalry, with Sindhu leading 11-7. Japan's hopes of a singles medal in badminton rested on Yamaguchi, and she came out aggressive in uncharacteristic fashion in the opening game. It played into Sindhu's hands as she raced away with the first game at 21-13. Sindhu pulled out a 14-7 lead in the second game as well, but Yamaguchi started to engage her in long rallies and wait for the error. It worked like a dream as Sindhu found herself facing 2 game points, but 2 consecutive smashes and a run of 4 straight points handed her a 21-13, 22-20 win in 56 minutes. And that's a wrap on today's WION Live Broadcast. For more global news and updates, stay tuned to WION. World is One.
This is right, Arab.